It's my feel-good breakfast show.
A very good morning. Welcome back to your Feel Good Breakfast Show. Time to get an update on the latest involving, of course, the Oscar Pistorius trial. 49 days after his trial started and 20 months after he shot and killed his girlfriend, Reeva Steenkamp, Oscar Pistorius was sentenced to 5 years in prison for culpable homicide with a 3-year suspended sentence for the Tasha's shooting incident, which will run concurrently. Now, here's Judge Masipa's final sentencing from yesterday.
Mr. Pistorius, please rise. The following is what I consider to be a sentence that is fair and just both to society and to the accused. Count 1, culpable homicide. The sentence imposed is the maximum imprisonment of 5 years imposed in terms of Section 276(1)(I) of the Criminal Procedure Act. On count 2, the contravention of Section 120 of the Firearms Control Act. The sentence imposed is 3 years imprisonment, wholly suspended for 5 years.
Now, with Pistorius' freedom now gone and having begun his sentence the moment that Judge Masipa made her pronouncement, with us in studio to discuss what comes next, Chairperson of the Law Society's Criminal Law Committee, Mr. William Booth. Always good to have you here, sir. And to help us understand exactly how this works, because I was watching the broadcast and they were saying that even though 5 years is the sentence that's been handed down, Oscar might see some 10 months only in prison and then be released possibly. So maybe explain to us, why is that and under what circumstances would that happen?
It's a type of sentence that is similar to the one that his defence team were arguing. That was correctional supervision, but that he does not in fact go and serve any jail time. This type of sentence is 5 years, and after a period of 1/6, the Department of Correctional Supervision can consider his release under correctional supervision for the remaining part of that 5-year sentence. But there's no guarantee. There are some people who've received that type of sentence and remain in custody longer than the 1/6, which is the 10-month period that everybody is talking about at the moment. So it's all in the hands of the Department of Correctional Supervision. And if he's released under their supervision, under their conditions, and he contravenes those conditions, he can go back to court and be re-sentenced.
So is this all basically just maybe dependent on good behaviour, that once he's been there for 1/6 or 10 months, if he's shown good behaviour, then he is able then to apply for early release? Is that how it works?
Well, that's one of the factors. You know, there are programs that are conducted in prison, treatment programs, rehabilitation programs and the like. They're not possibly as great as they should be, but the Department of Correctional Supervision looks at a prisoner and says, well, has he complied with their requirements? And they can set the requirements. And if he hasn't, well, then the period isn't 10 months, it could be a lot longer. But I suppose Oscar would fall within that category of a prisoner who usually will comply with all their requirements. So I think there's a good chance he will be released after the 10 months. But if he doesn't comply afterwards, because then he's placed under house arrest, his movements are monitored all the time. He can only leave his home for work purposes or to attend church services. Otherwise, he's got to remain there. He can't travel. He possibly couldn't even travel within South Africa. And if he doesn't comply with all of this, and there's treatment programs, and they set all these kind of criteria, he can go back to court and be resentenced.
Tell me about the two cases that the judge referred to in terms of case law, the State versus Ndunge and the State versus Foster, and how these were applied in order to come to that final sentence.
Well, the court, or any court rather, has to look at precedent set. But I think one must remember each case is different. So the circumstances of those cases were really, if we analyse them, different to Oscar's case. And of course the personal circumstances of the accused in those cases are also different. So, you know, the court says, well, in a particular matter, this kind of sentence was handed down for culpable homicide. But, you know, it's the different person. Cases change, and that's the difficulty when it comes to sentencing. You can't just put your requirements into a little machine and out pops the sentence at the end of the day. Because you're dealing with a human being with all human frailties and all the conditions that the court must look at, including the interests of society and the seriousness of the crime.
All right, I'm going to put you on the spot one last time, a yes or a no, and you're allowed to plead the fifth. Do you think the sentence was just?
Well, the family have said it was just, but I think it is not a light sentence. And you're always going to have the public, somebody in the public, criticising the sentence. So I think the judge looked at all the factors, weighed them up, in my opinion, quite correctly, and it is not a light sentence, and I think it's probably the correct sentence in the circumstances.
Thank you very much, sir. Always appreciate your insights. Well, here's the question to you. Do you think that Pistorius received a just punishment? Let us know on our Facebook page, Expresso Morning Show, SABC3. Now, up next, we're chatting to psychologist Clarissa Bloomberg about how and whether Oscar will cope in a South African prison.
Well, there you just said it, Katz, and while you're joining in the conversation on social media at the moment, Clarissa Bloomberg is here to talk about the psychology. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Ilana.
Let's get straight into it. Pistorius was quite unemotional. We know him as a guy that normally breaks down and cries. Any thoughts on his reaction to the sentence?
You know, Ilana, I definitely think he was prepped because they wouldn't want the whole world, you know, watching him throw up and collapse. So I definitely think he was, but sure, shame, really. Maybe a little bit of denial as well for what's coming, but he really just stood fast.
From your experience, you know, analysing his psychological history, we're all talking about the 5 years that lies ahead for him. Do you think he will cope in prison?
You know, I don't think so. I think it's a radical change. I think all his privileges has been taken away. I mean, his cell phone, his access to his family, his church visits, his sister, his psychologist. I mean, when he spent alone in the cell last night, you know, I don't want to say my heart goes out for him. That's hectic. And remember, he also suffers from anxiety as well. So I'm not sure that he's going to cope so well, although he's shown adversity, having the limbs amputated and all of that. But I'm concerned.
Mr. William Booth, you just pointed out something that, I mean, we sometimes forget he's a human. And so you look at this whole scenario and it's not something that you can just predict. But I can't help but think, is this the kind of sentence that will almost scare or put people off from shooting another human being negligently?
Ilana, I don't think so. I mean, do our criminals consider the retribution and the, you know, being in prison? I don't think so. You know, I mean, they're twittering and they're saying you kill a rhino and you get 77 years.
Right.
So I don't think so.
The trial has been heavy emotional. I can't help but think, where does this leave the Steenkamp family? Where does this leave the Pistorius family? Emotionally, where do you think they are at the moment?
You know what, I think it's the beginning of their journey to start healing. For the Steenkamps, I mean, it's been 20 months, and each time they're re-traumatized every single day. I think now they must try and look forward and start. The mourning process could take forever. As far as Pistorius' family, I think they're beginning a whole nother journey, how they're going to be supportive. Question mark, there's all, weighing it up. It's really, I'm concerned for both.
Sure. It's Clarissa Bloomberg in our studio, psychologist, talking about Oscar Pistorius. Join in that conversation. Once again, you can go to our Facebook page, so it's Expresso Show, SABC3, to continue that conversation. Clarissa, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you.
We're going to lift the mood. It's time for some music. Teresti Ryder, she is our DJ from 5FM. She's counting down that tracks, our favourite music of the week. It's called the 5FM Top 40, and here it is.